Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rana Ravi from Committee on MSME and Startup. I would like to welcome our speaker, CA Ritesh Mittal sir, and our coordinator, CA Jagdish Solanki sir, for today's Patsala series. Uh, Jagdish sir, over to you.
Uh, Thank you, Raviji. Myself, C. Jagdish Solanki from HP Design Associates. So, good afternoon, all. Uh, to all the respected dignitaries, all participants, and fellow professionals. It's indeed my privilege to welcome the 65th MSME Patsala series of MSME organized by the MSME and Startup Committee under the leadership of CA Gyanchandra Mishra and C. Arpit Kabra. Today's topic is Samadhaan, recovery assistance to MSME is highly relevant to our MSME community, entrepreneur and professional like us. So we are here to explore the practical solution for ensuring timely payment and stand for a solution of our MSME. We are honored to have with us a CA Ritesh Mittal, BCom, LLB, FCA, DISA, and insolvency professional. Mr. Mittal is the senior partner at Sanjay Kumar Kothari, a CA firm. He holds a CA degree, LLB, BCom, qualified system auditor and insolvency professional with over 20 year of expertise in company law, direct tax and indirect tax and legal matters. He has served the interim resolution professional for multiple companies and regularly represent before the NCLT in the matter relating to the insolvency and bankruptcy code. He also presented numerous papers to leading organizations and institutions across India. In addition, Mr. Mittal holds several board position and leadership position like managing committee members of Federation of Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry since 2019. Nominated member of Micro Small Enterprise Facilitation Council, Madchil and Malgiri since 2021. Chairman of Industrial Training Institute, Department of Employment and Training, Government of Telangana since 2021. Governing body member of Indian Council of Arbitration, New Delhi since 2021. Governing Council member of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh Tax Bar Association from 2019 to 2022 and served as a president for the year 2022. Regional Council member of South Indian Regional Council of ICI from 2016 to 2019. Managing Committee member of Hyderabad branch of SIRC of ICI from 2013 to 2016. With such a deep knowledge and expert and active involvement in MSME related legal, financial, and policy matters, Mr. Mittal brings invaluable insight to our session today. With these words, it's my honor to invite Mr. Mittal to share his valuable thoughts with us. Sir, over to you, sir, Mittal, sir.
Sir, you are mute. Ritesh sir?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Jagdish, and thank you, Ravi. First of all, I would like to thank the Committee of MSME and Startup of ICI for inviting me as the speaker. And today's topic, Samadhaan, recovery assistance to MSME. Now, see, when it comes to recovery mechanism, okay, what are the generally what do you think of the recovery mechanism? The first thing is filing a civil suit, okay, and if the person has issued any checks, then you can file Section 138 and the Negotiable Instruments Act, which is actually a criminal offense. And apart from that, if there are specific uh, reliefs which are applicable only to specific sectors, like for example, in the case of banks and financial institutions, they can go for DRT, and the next level is DRDT. And similarly, we have for NCLT, which is again based on the Banking Reforms Committee. It was to the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code had been introduced in the year 2016, and this is also again to help the banks and financial institutions so that they can recover the monies. In fact, uh, it has been the banks. You can understand how importance the what they did is they have segregated the financial creditor from the operational creditor. And in the waterfall model, the financial creditor was getting more importance. And so that, the financial creditors are mostly the banks and financial institutions. And subsequently, one more relief, what they did is in the case of MSME enterprises, if the corporate debtor is MSME, if the company which has gone to insolvency is MSME, the promoter or the company can come and buy the company. And so what he has to do is he can only make the payment to the COC, and balance payments a little bit he can get along with. In fact, for this, one more special act had one more special, or not, I would say act, one more chapter has been introduced, which was called as a pre-pack insolvency, so that this process goes even more smoothly. Then they introduced the personal guarantors, which was again to benefit the bankers. Okay. Now, this statute of MSME is to help MSME enterprises. Okay. Why do you think MSME need a help? Why can't two people be treated at par? And why is that one person is given more importance? Okay. This is basically a reason because the same thing. See, I am a bench member in MSME Festation Council, Mitchell Malkajgiri. And one of the respondent asked, Sir, why are you giving so much importance here? We all have to be treated at par. I asked him how many pages your purchase order is. He said around 20 pages. Okay. And how many pages the invoice is? He said one pages. And is the supplier even writing an interest clause in the invoices? He says sometimes yes, sometimes he didn't even write that. So here the issue is when most of the MSMEs are providing or supplying the goods or services to, I would say, government or large corporates. At this side, they are big fishes, and this side is a small fish. He writes everything there, and this person doesn't even protect by writing a small interest clause also. Okay. So that is where a huge difference was there. Now, this person, what he says is, if there is a delay, I will impose LD charges. And in case there is a delay from this side in payment, he says there is no interest clause in the purchase order. So why should I pay interest? Your invoice doesn't have an interest clause. Why should I pay interest? Okay. So this is how a huge difference was coming in. And it was observed that many of the arbitrators also who were appointed were also, were little bit inclined. So that is where most of the respondents, the companies, they want their arbitrators who are appointed. They said, sir, we already have a arbitration clause in our agreement. And why don't you allow us to invoke that arbitration so that we'll appoint the arbitrators? I said, this arbitration, this MSME bench is equally a arbitrator. It can pass an arbitration award as per the Arbitration Act. First, it will do the mediation, conciliation, or earlier it was called as conciliation, now it is called as mediation. And then if it fails, it will pass an arbitration. I'll tell you what is a conciliation. In the conciliation stage, two parties are made to sit and then they are tried to settle the matter so that the conciliation is not basically, you can see, family, where there is a dispute in husband and wife. Before going to the court, someone in the family will sit and try to resolve the matter amicably. Okay, he will not see what is law, that is a separate thing. Basically, any settlement is it possible in them. That is what is called as conciliation. And now it is going forward, it is called as mediation because the Mediation Act has come and that is replacing the conciliation. Then, if it fails, then the formal arbitration process is going to come. Similarly, once a case goes to the MSME Festation Council, the first stage is called as the conciliation stage or the mediation stage. They will try to ensure that both the parties come and settle the matter amicably. Okay, in case the settlement doesn't happen, they will record in writing that the settlement has failed and then it has gone for arbitration. So in the conciliation stage, they cannot pass any orders. They cannot take, uh, no counter rejoinders, okay, no arguments, nothing can be done at the conciliation stage. It is at the arbitration stage only this process has to be done. Then finally, the arbitration award will be passed by the council, which is at par with any civil court. And for execution, the respondent, the claimant has to file a execution petition. And if the respondent is going for an appeal, he has to pay 75% as a deposit. Okay. That's how stringent the amount, the thing is. So basically what happens, as I'm saying, is when two people are not at equal, the law is trying to make them equal. Okay, this is what. So I'll just share my PPT here, this brief background. You are able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
thank you. So MSME Act has an overriding effect. Like, for example, Section 24 of the Act says the provisions of Section 15 to 23. These provisions of 15 to 23, what are there? They are relating to Chapter 5, which is for delayed payments to micro and small enterprises. Okay. So 15 is liability for the buyer to make the payment. 16 is date from which and the rate at which interest is payable, recovery of amount, reference to micro. So these are the sections which are for applicable for delayed payments. So for this section, what section 24 says is the provisions of section 15 to 23 shall have effect notwithstanding anything consistent therewith in any other law for the time being in force. So basically, MSME is a special act. So there is a difference between a general act and a special act. Whenever there is a two acts are there, this legislation of the special act will prevail over the general act. So MSME is a special legislation and it has an overriding effect on other statutes and agreements regarding the delayed payments. Now, so this is the case wherein the court has held the validity of MSME and the arbitration which was being done. So here in this case of GET India Limited versus Reliable Industries Projects and Marketing, decided by the Delhi High Court, the applicability of Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise Development Act to existing arbitration clauses in contract between the large corporates and the small scale supplier. The court affirmed that the MSME Act provisions, particularly those related to dispute resolutions through the facilitation councils, override the existing arbitration clauses in the contract. So, even if there is an arbitration clause in the contract, still the MSME provisions will override. So, if the supplier is a micro or a small enterprise, a micro or small enterprise, then he can approach the MSME facilitation council, even though the agreement says the arbitration clause is applicable. Okay. This is now very much accepted. Now, the classification of MSMEs. So earlier, the MSMEs was classified into based on the nature, the manufacturing enterprise or the servicing and service enterprise. Now it is both the same categories applicable. So this is the revised classification applicable from 1st of April 2025. Classification for micro, small, and medium. Investment in plant and machinery and annual turnover. So there are two criteria. The investment limit in plant machinery or equipment, and the second criteria is the annual turnover. For a micro enterprise, the investment should not be more than 2.5 crores and the annual turnover should not be more than 10 crores. For a small enterprise, the investment and the plant and machinery should not be more than 25 crores and the annual turnover should not be 100 crores. And for a medium enterprise, it is 125 and 500 crores. Now, how should you see? Yes, you have to see that both the criterias are met. Even if one criteria is crossed, then we have to go with the higher level. For example, we will say in the case of medium enterprises, it should not be more than 500 crores. And for the small annual turnover, and in the case of small enterprise, it should not be more than 100 crores. Now, suppose if there is a category where the investment is 25 crores, but the turnover is 150 crores. So in that case, it becomes a medium category and the small and not a small category. Both the turnovers have to be looked into. So composite criteria for investment. So that is how we have to see. We have to see both the turnovers Okay, so the composite criteria for investment and turnover shall apply for classification of enterprise into micro, small, or medium. If an enterprise crosses the ceiling limit specified by the present criteria in either of the two criteria of investments or turnover, it will cease to exist in that category and be placed in the next higher category. That is what I'm saying. Even if the one category is crossed, it will be ceased to infect in that category. It will go to the higher category. But no enterprise shall be placed in the lower category unless it goes below the ceiling limit specified for the present category in both the criteria of investment. Similarly, if suppose one category reduces, doesn't mean that it is going to the lower category. No, both the categories has to reduce. So that means that's how I think you have got the picture. We have to see the composite criteria for investment in plant and machinery and the annual turnover. Both the criterias are, if they're matching, then it will be in the particular category. Even if the one criteria is crossed, you have to take it to the higher criteria. Okay, clear. Okay. So all goods of, so how do you take the criteria? So for example, I have various branches and each branch has a separate GSTN number. So the criteria will be PAN based. Okay. So now in a particular PAN number, how many GSTN numbers you are having? I will consolidate all the turnovers and investment. So based on that, the criteria will be decided. So all units with goods and service tax identification number listed against the same PAN number shall be collectively treated as one enterprise, and the turnover and investment figures of all such enterprises shall be seen together, and only the aggregate values will be considered for deciding the category. Now, who is a supplier? Now, you might say what side of question it is. Every person who is supplying, suppose if you see from the GST perspective, who is a supplier? Any person who is supplying a good or a service is a supplier. But here, the supplier is different. Every person who is supplying is not a supplier. Here it is as per section 2. And supplier means a micro or small enterprise. What does it mean? First of all, we had three categories: micro, small, and medium. So here in the case of supplier, he says it is either a micro or a small. First of all, medium is removed. So suppose if a person who is a medium supplier, is he a supplier? As per this definition, no, he is not a supplier as per section 2N, because supplier means it has to be either a micro or a small. Second thing is it has to be an enterprise. What is enterprise? We'll come to the next slide. And who has filed a memorandum with the authority referred to in section 8, subsection 1 of section 8. What is this memorandum? The registration. So, okay, they should have compulsory have a Udyam registration. So that is what is called as application for registration, or here it is called as memorandum. Okay. And includes. So that is now, apart from this supplier, it's an inclusive definition. A national small industries corporation, a small industries development, any company, cooperative society, trust or body by whatever name called, registered or constituted under any law for the time being in force and engaged in selling goods produced by micro or small enterprises and rendering services which are provided by such enterprises. So here, first of all, suppose if there is a micro and small enterprises and there is a company, cooperative society, trust or body, okay, and it is basically selling the goods or services of this micro enterprises, which will also be included. Like what we can say is a distributor sort of person. If he's only, he's selling the goods of this enterprise, then he will also be taken as a supplier. Now, what is an enterprise? Enterprise means an industrial undertaking or a business concern or any other establishment by whatever name called. So first of all, it is basically a industrial undertaking. Okay. Business concern or any other establishment, whatever name called, engaged in manufacture or production of goods in any manner pertaining to any industry specified in the first schedule to the Industries Development and Regulation Act 1951, or engaged in providing or rendering of any service or services. So first thing, it is an enterprise. It has to be an industrial enterprise, business concern, or whatever other establishment. So basically, he has covered everything. Industrial. Now, in the business concern, all other enterprises can be covered. Okay. Engaged in manufacturing or production of goods. So basically here it's a manufacturer. Then second part is engaged in producing or rendering of any service or services. And again in between there is a or. So either it is you are a manufacturer of goods or you are providing a rendering of any services. Okay. Service, suppose if the chartered accountant is there, can I call him as an enterprise?
Yes.
Can a chartered
Yes.
accountant be called as an enterprise?
Yes.
Yes. Why? He is not a industrial undertaking, but it is a business concern and engaged in providing or rendering of any service or services. Security agencies. Can I call them as an enterprise? Okay, you have the security
Yes.
guards, security agencies are there. Can I call them as an
Yes.
enterprise? Yes.
Yes.
How come? Again, same like
Service.
they are a business concern or and engaged in providing or rendering any services. Okay. Now, similarly, can I call a trader as an enterprise now?
No.
Can a trader be called as enterprise?
No. No.
No. Why? Because it should be there specifically two criteria: manufacture or production of goods, and the second criteria is service. He is neither manufacturing, he is neither providing any service. So that is the reason trader doesn't come here. Okay. However, here what it says is in the inclusive definition, any company, cooperative society, or trust, see, basically the enterprise is defined so that in that enterprise, I will pick up micro and small enterprise, okay, and who has filed a memorandum, that is, who has a Udyam registration. So, micro and small enterprise having Udyam registration. Fair enough. That is how a supplier. So, ultimately, any person who wants to file a case or whatever the benefits which are there under Chapter 5 of the MSMED Act is applicable only for the supplier. Okay. So now everyone who wants to become a supplier. Like for example, if there is a reservation to certain category, if I have to be first to qualify that I am that person, only then I am entitled for the reservation. So here also, since this benefit basically is given to the supplier, first of all, are you a supplier has to be checked. Now, first of all, in this case, medium enterprises are specifically outside. Okay, because it says micro or small enterprise. Enterprise again it has defines here. So we have seen here. Now, again, one more thing. Works contract. Works contractor, easy enterprise.
Yes.
Okay. Now, why is the question? Who is a works contractor? Who is
Business
supplying
concern.
any services? Basically, he takes the goods and provides any services. Okay. Now, again, one more example I'll give you. Job, this one. Uh, not job worker. Suppose if there is any person who has taken the project for lift, okay, he is assembling the lift. So he is buying goods as well as he is providing the services. Okay. In that case, can I call him as enterprise? I have given a contract for construction of a building. So he is providing goods as well as services. So can I call this person as a enterprise? Because he's engaged, he's manufacturing production of goods, okay, at the same time services. But here the question is both are coming in here. So specifically it says or is there. Since specifically and is not there here, okay. So works contract does are presently many of the benches have said that the works contract doesn't come under the category as a enterprise, okay, because the word used is or. This matter is still pending in the Supreme Court. Okay. So, so I hope I'm clear here. Okay. So is registration mandatory? Because here it says a supplier who has filed a memorandum. Filing a memorandum is nothing but he should have applied for registration. Okay, he should have a Udyam registration. So is a registration mandatory? Yes, registration is very much mandatory. A party who was not a supplier as per the definition contained in section 2N of the MSME Act on the date of entering into the contract cannot seek any benefits as to the supplier under the MSME Act. So what I have done is, suppose I have supplied the goods till 31st of December 2024. I have taken the registration on 1st of January, when I came to know that the person is not making the payment, then I have applied for the registration. In that case, I cannot file a case with the facilitation council for the date prior to my registration. Okay. So an enterprise, though had not been registered at the time of the contract, was entered into between the parties. So when the time of entering into the contract, the enterprise was not registered, but is registered during the subsistence of the contract. And in such circumstances, the benefit will be prospectively. So suppose what I have done is, in this case, the person was supplying from January 24 to December 24. Okay, continuously there is a supply. On 1st of July 2024, he registered. In that case, for only those supplies which are after 1st of July 2024, he can take the benefit with the facilitation council. So this benefit will be given prospectively and cannot be applied retrospectively. So an enterprise, though had not been registered at the time when the contract was entered into between the parties, but is registered during the subsistence of the contract, and in circumstances, the benefit will be prospective and applies to supply of goods and services subsequent to registration, but cannot operate retrospectively. So this was decided in the Gujarat State Civil Supplies Corporation Limited versus Mahakali Foods Private Limited. Sorry, I just silent the phone. This is with regard to the traders. Can traders take the benefit under the MSMED Act? So there is an office memorandum issued by the government on 1/9/2021, which says benefit of provisions of the delayed payments as per MSME Act applicable to MSME which are traders related. So wide number so and so issued by this office, retail and wholesale traders have been included as MSMEs, allowing them to be registered on Udyam registration portal, and benefits of retail and wholesale trade MSMEs are to be restricted to priority sector lending only. In this context, some MSMEs have been approached by traders to get the benefits of provisions of delayed payments as per the MSME Act available to MSMEs. It is clarified that, as mentioned in the aforesaid uh, office memo, the benefits of retail and wholesale trade MSMEs are restricted upon to priority sector lending only, and any other benefits, including provisions of delayed payments as per the MSME Act, are excluded. So, they can register, they can take a Udyam registration, right there a wholesaler or retailer, but the banks will be taking them as priority sector lending. That's what the benefit they can get, but they cannot take the benefit as with the MSME Chapter 5, that is with regard to the approaching of facilitation council or interest is not applicable to them. Now, as I've said, if there is a downgrade, suppose we have seen three criteria limits. Now, for example, from a I would say from small enterprise to a medium, if there is a downgrade, in that case, they can still take from the small to medium if they have gone, then they can take the benefit for the next 3 years. Okay. If there is an upward graduation, so suppose on the groundwork, there is an upward. Suppose from the benefit of MSME is applicable to small and micro and small categories, not applicable to medium. So from a small category, a organization has gone into the medium category. In that case, it can take the benefit for the next 3 years. So this is the notification. It says, in I'm reading point number 5, in case there is an upward change in terms of investment in plant and machinery or equipment or turnover or both, the consequent reclassification, an enterprise shall continue to avail of all non-tax benefits of this category, micro or small or medium, it was in before the reclassification for a period of 3 years from the date of such upward change. Okay. So any non-tax related benefits you can all take up. Now, as I've said, they have to file a memorandum. That means they have to take a registration, MSME. Now, how do they take a registration? Here is the here. Section 8 is a section which talks about the registration memorandum of micro, small, and medium enterprises. Any person who intends to establish a micro or small enterprise may, at his discretion, or a medium enterprise engaged in providing or rendering of services may, at his discretion, or a medium enterprise engaged in manufacturing or production of goods pertaining to any industry specified in the first schedule. So basically, he has covered all the three criteria. Micro and small as one criteria, medium enterprise engaged in services, medium enterprises engaged in manufacturing or production of goods and services. All the three categories are here. Okay. They can apply. Any person who intends to establish a MSME may file Udyam registration online with the Udyam registration portal based on the self-declaration with no requirement to upload documents, papers, certificates, or proofs. On registration, the enterprise will be assigned a Udyam registration number. Udyam registration certificate shall be issued on completion of the registration process. What is the registration process? The form for registration shall be provided in the Udyam registration portal. There is no fees. Aadhaar number shall be required for Udyam registration. Aadhaar number shall be of the proprietor in the case of a proprietorship firm, of the managing partner in the case of a partnership firm, and of the Karta in the case of the HUF. So basically, the signatory in the case of a partner, a proprietorship firm, a partner. In the case of the partnership firm, in the case of proprietorship firm, the proprietor. In the case of a partnership firm, the managing partner, and in the case of the HUF, the Karta. The signatory Aadhaar number will be required. In the case of a company or LLP or a cooperative society or a society or trust, the organization or its authorized signatory shall provide its GSTN number and PAN number along with the Aadhaar number. So basically, this is the portal is Aadhaar portal based. As you have seen, all the Aadhaar number is a must. Along with that, PAN number is required. Along with that, GSTN number is also there. That is also required. So what happens is basically it is not taking the details upfront, but since the government already has the details based on the PAN number, it has access to the income tax returns. Based on the GSTN numbers, it has the access to the turnover. From there, it can pick up the numbers. So that is the reason Udyam registration is a dynamic portal. It can take the data from backend. So registration process in case the enterprise is duly registered as a Udyam with PAN, any deficiency of information for previous year when it does not have a PAN shall be filled up on self-declaration basis. No enterprise shall file more than one Udyam registration, provided that any number of activities, including manufacturing or services or both, as may be specified or added in one Udyam registration. So it has to specifically say whether it is manufacturing or services or both, or it's a trader. That has to be specifically mentioned. Moreover, whoever intentionally misrepresents or attempts to suppress the self-declared facts and figures appeared in the Udyam registration or updated process shall be liable to such penalties as specified in section 27 of the Act. Do one thing, I'll open the so So this is the website udyamregistration.gov.in. Okay. It says now here for new enterprise who are not registered as MSME on or those with so and so. For those, so suppose if they don't have, you want to apply for Udyam registration, you have to click here. Then it will ask for the Aadhaar number and name of the enterprise, and then particular form will come, and then you have to fill it up. This is the definition of MSME. Earlier, from 2020 to 25, was the different criteria was there. I think the government portal website mostly show and have.gov in there. Why do you think they are giving? In fact, here also, if you say this is the only government portal with MSME Udyog registration, Udyam registration, why do you think all these points are there here?
Many people
You
charging
ask?
the fees.
No.
Many people
What is
charging the
happening
fees.
here? There are many bogus websites are there. If you put for Udyam registrations, so if you go for and write in Google Udyam registrations, let us see. Suppose Google.
Some multiple sites is covered.
So bogus websites are there. So that is the reason government is educating that all government websites will be Udyam. And as soon as you feed their information, they will call you saying that yes, sir, your application is received for Udyam registration, and you have to pay so and so amount. Now let's say Udyam Assist, Udyam Kendra. So there are many such bogus websites are there. You once you give the details, they will start calling you saying that yes, we have access to your application. You have to make so and so payment. That is the reason. Yes, for Udyam registration, there is no such payment. That is the reason it is being stressed about. Okay. And what is the process? So the process is there in here. Okay, there Udyam registration sample form. So this is how first once you press those keys, it will ask for the Aadhaar number, name of the enterprise. You have to verify with the OTP. Second is it will verify the PAN number. Okay. Then have you filed the ITRs for the previous year? Yes or no? And do you have GSTN numbers? Then you have to give those details. Then the name of the enterprise as per PAN or Aadhaar, mobile number, email ID. Then category of ownership of the MSME, who is having which one category. Then in the case of proprietorship, then social category, gender, specially abled, any units, location of plants, addresses, office address, status of the enterprise, bank details, major activities, it is either manufacturing or service. What is the NIC code of the activities you are doing in? Okay. You have to select from the drop down. Number of persons employed. And in the case of the investments, how much is the WBDV? Cost of equipments, net investments, turnovers, and some questionnaire sort of. Okay. That yes and then finally you have to submit the OTP. Once you do that, the registration will be available. Okay. So it's a simple process for application for a Udyam number, but it is a very important step. I hope you all as a chartered accountant at least are we having a Udyam numbers. Better to have a Udyam number applied there. Okay, and incorporate them in the as a best practice, incorporate in the invoicing also. Okay, write the Udyam number and also can write there in brackets if it's a micro enterprise in services. Okay. Similarly, a medium enterprise or mostly it will be a micro or small. So write that category also there. Okay. So this is with regard to applying for a Udyam number, okay, which is a mandatory and the important step. Now coming to the chapter 5, which is for delayed payments to micro and small enterprise. So this is the entire from here. The sections are Section 15, liability of the buyer to make the payment. So here it is giving a mandatory liability for the buyer to make the payment. Section 16, date from which and rate at which interest is payable. What is the date from which interest is payable and what is the rate of interest? That's also both is mentioned there. Recovery of amount due. Then 18, reference to the micro and small enterprises facilitation council. This is called as MSCFC. You can make a reference to the MSCFC. Application for setting aside a decree, award, or order. Suppose the MSME council issues a award, then if you are going for a application to the court for setting aside the decree or award, in that case, what you have to do. Then how the facilitation councils are established. What are the composition of a facilitation council? Requirement to specify unpaid amount with interest in the annual financial statements. So in the financial statements, there is a certain requirement that the amounts due has to be shown separately. How much is the principal amount, how much is the interest amount, and all that criteria. So if your accounts are being audited, then these details has to be separately shown. Interest not to be allowed as deduction from income. So it says under the Income Tax Act, your interest is not allowed to be taken in the computation. That is also here. So how can it do that? Because this section overrides, is overriding other acts. Okay, this is a special act. Now coming to one by one section. Section 15. Delay payments to micro and small enterprises. Liability of the buyer to make a payment. Where any supplier supplies. So what is the meaning of supplier here? Can I take a medium supplier as a supplier here? Medium enterprise as a supplier? No. As defined in section 2.1, the supplier is a micro or a small enterprise. Okay, so here the definition of the supplier is different from this definition of the supplier which means in other cases like in GST or otherwise. So where any supplier supplies any goods or renders any services to the buyer shall make payment thereof on or before the date agreed upon between him and the supplier in writing, or where there is no agreement in this behalf before the appointment date. So he is supposed to make the payment if there is an agreement, okay, in that case before the date, or if there is no agreement in that case before the appointed date. Provided that in no case the period agreed upon between the supplier and the buyer in writing shall exceed 45 days from the date of acceptance or the date of deemed acceptance. Now, suppose I am a supplier, I have supplied goods to Jagdish, and the period says Jagdish is going to make the payment. I am a manufacturer, he says he is going to make the payment in 180 days. In that case, what is the date? So here, though it is 180 days, though it is in writing, it says provided that in no case the period agreed upon between between the seller and the buyer in writing shall exceed 45 days. So it is deemed to be now 45 days. It shall not exceed 45 days. Okay. So it is now considered to be as 45 days, whatever is the agreement. The buyer, okay. So again, if you read, where the supplier supplies any goods or renders any services to the buyer shall make payment thereof on or before the date agreed upon between him and the supplier in writing. Okay. And this date, if it is more than 45 days, will be considered as 45 days. And if there is no agreement in this behalf before the appointed date. Now, what is the appointed date? Appointed date. Yeah, this is appointed date. Appointed date is defined in section 2b, which says, means the day following immediately the expiry of 15 days from the date of acceptance or the date of deemed acceptance. So once the goods are received from there 15 days, so once the goods are received 15 days from there, or the date of deemed acceptance of any goods or any service by the buyer for a supply. So now suppose if the auditor has signed the balance sheet, uploaded from that date, 15 days will be the date of acceptance. Now, explanation. For the purpose of this clause, the date of acceptance means the date of the actual delivery of goods or the rendering of services. So the date of acceptance, we have seen here 15 days from the day. So from the date of acceptance. So here in this case, if it is from the, what is the day of acceptance? In case the actual delivery of goods or rendering of services, or where any objection is made in writing by the buyer regarding acceptance of goods or services within 15 days from the date the delivery of goods or rendering of services, the date on which such objection is received by the supplier. So first thing is, once the goods are received, if the supplier has any objection that there is a defect, in that case, he will update. And now the buyer will tell the supplier that there is a defect. The supplier is supposed to rectify the defect. From the date he has rectified the defect, from there 15 days. Now, what is deemed acceptance? The date of deemed acceptance means where there is no objection is made in writing by the buyer regarding acceptance of goods or services within 15 days from the date of delivery of goods or delivery of services, the date on which the actual delivery of goods or rendering of services. So, seller has not said anything. He is neither saying it is good or bad. He has just received it. But within 15 days, he has not stated that he has an issue also. In that case, the date of actual delivery or goods, 15 days from the date of delivery of goods or rendering of services will be taken as date of deemed acceptance. Now, here, first of all, many of the cases, what happens is the respondent, see, we here, there is a claimant and a respondent. The respondent says, sir, there was a defect. Okay, that is the reason he has not paid. When was the intimation made? He says, now, that is what the bench sees is, when was the intimation for the defect made? Was it, it has to be made within 15 days, or suppose, okay, later on 15 days also if it is there, is it within a reasonable time? Now, just imagine after 3 months, 4 months, he says there is a defect. That is where the intention of the buyer is senior. So whenever the buyer, if he sees there is a defect, immediately he has to intimate. Otherwise, if he says later on, then the bench views it as if wantedly he is trying to create a dispute. Because see, what happens is the buyer always wants to delay the payment. So as soon as the that issue of payment comes, first of all, he'll see, okay, he'll see, okay, I have endorsed the goods. So I cannot say that I have not received the goods. Okay, in the invoices endorsed or the acceptance is there. Then he'll try to say, okay, there is a defect in the goods. Now, obviously, initially he didn't say. So subsequently, he's trying to create some picture because he doesn't want to make the payment. So obviously, he cannot say backdated and say, so what is the date he has said that there is a dispute is there. So that date, is it within 15 days has to be checked or maximum the bench will see it is within a reasonable period. So, but here it is very much clear. It is saying that within 15 days, if the acceptance is not done, it is said to be a deemed acceptance. So, what happens if the supplier says after 15 days? Nothing to do. Okay. So, he is supposed to raise the issue within 15 days. Now, what about if the buyer is a medium enterprise? Okay, should we consider it? Now, let us before that I'll say take this slide. Date from which and the rate at which interest is payable. Where the buyer fails to make the payment of the amount to the supplier as required in section 15, the buyer shall, notwithstanding anything contained in any agreement between the buyer and the seller or in any law for the time being in force. Okay. So what is this non-obstance clause saying? It is saying notwithstanding anything contained with the agreement. So whatever is the agreement is saying, or any law, if it is there, that also notwithstanding, the buyer is liable to pay compound interest with monthly rest to the supplier on that amount from the appointed date. So from what date? The appointed date. What is appointed date? 15 days from the date of acceptance, or in such no such agreement, 45 days, or from the appointed date, or as the case may be, from the date immediately following the date agreed upon. Okay. So it is appointed date or the date immediately agreed upon. That agreed upon date also cannot be maximum and only be 45 days. At 3 times the bank rate notified by the Reserve Bank. Okay. So the buyer is liable to pay compound interest with monthly rest at 3 times the bank rate notified by the Reserve Bank. So if the bank rate is around 7%, 21% interest is to be paid. Now these benefit, what happens if it's a medium enterprise? Is the buyer liable to pay? No, because here the seller includes only micro and small and not medium. So defaulting buyer will not be liable to pay interest at 3 times the bank rate under section 16 if the supplier is a medium enterprise. So that is the reason this chapter 5 is applicable only to micro and small. Now here in this case, what about the security deposit? The security deposit was given and the claimant said that my security deposit was held by the respondent and or the supplier said that the buyer has retained my security deposit. You see, because what happens is many of the cases tenders are issued based on the tenders the suppliers are given and the tender requirement maybe that there should be some security deposit has to be there. Now in this security deposit also can interest be taken. So this was decided in Savio Industrial and Structural Corporation SISC and Southern Railways. SISC was awarded a contract by Southern Railways and a issue arose regarding the refund of security deposit and whether interest was due on it. The arbitration award favored SISC, directing Southern Railways to refund the security deposit with the interest. Southern Railways challenged the interest component, arguing that it was prohibited by the contract's general conditions of contract. The court ultimately ruled in favor of Southern Railway, stating that they are not required to pay interest on the security deposit due to GCC. So basically, security deposit under contract is not entitled for interest under section 16. Okay. Now, recovery of the amount due. How to recover? For any goods supplied or services rendered by the supplier, again, whenever you see supplier in this chapter, it is not all suppliers. We have seen that it is only a supplier under section 2, subsection N of the MSMED Act. The buyer shall be liable to pay an amount with interest thereupon as provided in section 16. Now, suppose the buyer has paid the principal amount, he has not paid the interest amount. Can the sellers still go for recovery? For any goods for any goods supplied or services rendered by the supplier, the buyer shall be liable to pay the amount with interest thereupon as provided in section 16. So he is supposed to pay the amount, also the interest. Both are statutory amounts has to be paid. Okay. Now they are since it is stated in the statute, it is a statutory dues now. Now, if he still doesn't pay, Section 18, reference to Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, any party to the dispute may, with regard to any amount due under Section 17, make a reference to the Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council. So what it says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, any party to the dispute may, with regard to any amount due under Section 17. So what is Section 17 says? Principal and interest amount both. Yes, it is. Even they can go for interest also. May make a reference to the Micro and Small Facilitation Council. So that is what. So Micro and Small Facilitation Councils, MSCFCs, are basically a dispute resolution mechanism. So Act provides for the mechanism for resolving disputes relating to delayed payments through MSCFCs. So they, as I've said earlier, they'll first try for the conciliation or the mediation. Okay. And if the mediation fails, it will be taken for arbitration. So this is the first stage, the conciliation, again section 16 only. On receipt of the reference, the council shall either itself conduct conciliation in the matter or seek the assistance of any institute or center providing alternate dispute resolution services by making a reference to such institute or centers for conducting a conciliation and the provisions of the section 85 to 81 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act shall apply to such a dispute as if the conciliation was initiated under Part 3 of the Act. So basically, first the MSME, see what is given. On receipt of the reference, the council shall either itself conduct conciliation in the matter or seek any assistance of an institution or center. Like for example, here in Hyderabad, there is a tie-up with the International Arbitration and Mediation Center, IAMC. So what the state government has done is, in cases of all amounts exceeding 3 crores and above, they have to be compulsorily referred to IAMC. And cases below 3 crores, it is at the discretion of the bench to refer the cases to IAMC. Okay. Now, first of all, see, why does the bench refer the cases to a institution or a center? Okay. Now, first of all, it can refer any issue only to an institution or center. Now, first of all, what is the difference? There is an individual arbitrator and there is an institutional arbitration. So what is the difference between? In the institutional arbitration, what happens is the file will come, they will have a panel and they will allot that case to the panel. Then they will give the name to the claimant and the respondent, both the parties, and then they'll decide the names. Okay, the chance is given. That is how institutional arbitration is held. The arbitrator's work is again reviewed by the institute. Okay, whereas individual, there is nothing such. So they can refer the case only to an institutional or center for conducting the conciliation. Okay. So that is what it is. Okay. So it can do the conciliation itself, or it can refer to any institute or center. And it will, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act shall apply to this part. It will be deemed to have been done under this act. Okay. So what is, and now after this Mediation Act has come, what one of the chapters says, all these uh, sections, wherever the conciliation is there, it has been replaced with the mediation. Both are more or less the same, wherein what happens is the council will try to ensure that both the parties sit and decide the matter on themselves. Okay. Amicably. Amicable settlement is tried upon. Okay. So in this case, if the amicable settlement is accepted, well and good. Okay, whether wherein the supplier says, okay, I even if it is, suppose the buyer says, I am not having the funds to make the payment, I want to make the, I cannot pay the principal amount, and the supplier says, okay, I am ready with the principal also. So amicable settlement has come, matter is closed. Okay, conciliation is successful. Whereas if the conciliation doesn't happen, one of the parties or both the parties are not accepting to that, in that case, the conciliation is unsuccessful or the conciliation fails. In that case, it goes to the next step called as the arbitration. Okay. Okay. This is arbitration. Where the conciliation initiated is not successful and stands terminated without any settlement between the parties. So first thing is, it has to be very much noted that the conciliation is not successful and it has been terminated and the arbitration has started. Okay, it cannot both, see, it's, for the bench, what happens is initially 2 to 3 hearings, they will call it as a conciliation, and finally they will make a note that the conciliation has failed, and they'll push it to the arbitration. Okay. Now, for example, I'll take a case. The respondent comes and says, accepts the liability. Yes, sir, I have to make the payment. Why have you not made the payment? Sir, I do not have the funds. Okay. When do you want to make the payment? He says, I will keep making the payment every month on month. Okay. Claimant is also saying, okay, sir, I'm accepted. Please make the payment. So he is coming, he is making some part payment, 10%, 20%, 30%, things are going on. Because finally, to say the conciliation has happened, the entire payment should have been received, and he is not ready to issue some checks. He says, I'll keep making the payment. So in that case, the bench cannot, since the conciliation is going on, they have to keep the case still in the conciliation. And finally, suppose he pays 50% and finally he says, now I cannot make the payment, or he is not making the payment. Then he will say conciliation failed. And in the conciliation stage itself, they are not supposed to pass any orders. Okay. They are only trying to ensure that both the parties are coming in and a amicable settlement is possible in the conciliation stage. If that doesn't happen, only then the arbitration stage comes in. What happens in the arbitration stage? Nothing but, first of all, he files a claim statement. Obviously, the respondent is supposed to give a counter. Okay, he gives a counter. Again, the claimant is given that counter copy is served to the claimant. Claimant is, if any, he has any submissions on the counter or rejoinder, he will submit the rejoinder. Similarly, both the parties, since after the pleadings are over, both the parties will be asked to discuss on the matter. Arguments will be happening. Now, after this process is done, the Facilitation Council will give its arbitration award. Okay. This is the process. So this entire process has to be done. First of all, the claimant's copy has to be issued to the respondent. The service of copy should be done. The respondent should is given a chance to appear. Okay. And then the respondent has to submit a counter, then the rejoinder, and finally the argument stage. These documents of submitting the counter rejoining are called as pleadings. Once the pleading stage is over, then the argument stage happens. And finally, the award is being passed. And the award has to be a speaking order. What is the meaning of speaking order? Entire award has to be documented. What was the claim? Okay, what was the counter? What did the respondent tell in his counter? For that, how did the claimant has replied, and then finally, and then finally, what happened in the arguments, and finally, what is the bench's opinion. So it should be a speaking order. So the help of the speaking order is, suppose it goes for an appeal, it helps the next appellate authority to understand what was the how the order has been passed. So that is the reason the all any of the orders, mostly any of the courts or any NCLT also, whenever they pass an order, or here in MSME also, if they are passing, suppose they are passing order, the order should be a speaking order. Okay. And not just a conclusion. The conclusion is there on the last paragraph. But before that, they have to say what was the flow, how it has come in. Okay. Jurisdiction. Again, a most important thing. See, what it says is, where is the jurisdiction? It says again, notwithstanding anything contained any other law for the timing in force, the Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council or a center providing alternate dispute resolution services shall have a jurisdiction to act as an arbitrator or conciliation under this service, under this section in a dispute between the supplier located within its jurisdiction and the buyer located anywhere in India. Now, for example, uh, I have supplied to Jagdish. Okay, I am a MSME. Now, where is the jurisdiction? So, obviously, suppose Jagdish is a company, he will write in his purchase order that the jurisdiction is Mumbai. Whereas it says the MSME says the supplier's address will be the facilitation council. Now, Jagdish is supposed to come to Hyderabad and go for the bench. So, it is again here the benefit on the suppliers. Though the PO says or any agreement specifically says it will be referred to such court in Mumbai, nothing doing. Because again it says, notwithstanding anything contained any other law for the time in force, the Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council or the center providing ADR shall have jurisdiction to act as arbitration or conciliation under the section in the dispute between the supplier located within its jurisdiction and a buyer located anywhere in India. Obviously, Jagdish will say, what is the use of having such a big purchase order when everything has to be gone as per the MSMED Act? That is the issue. Most of the cases, see, because now suppose a supplier is supplying to government. Is MSMED applicable? Obviously, supplier has to be either a micro. I am going the supplier as per section 2N. Supply is made to government. Okay. Is MSMED Act applicable? Yes, it is applicable. It is it can be central government, state government, PSUs, defense units. It can be any organization. It can be large corporates also. So here what happens is they will have a huge pain. They say, sir, this is my document. This is what it says. It says this is I have put it in my purchase order saying that it has to be so and so arbitration. This is the jurisdiction, and finally everything is being reversed here. Okay, so that is how the act is. So it is the supplier's jurisdiction will be the facilitation council. Every reference made under this section shall be decided within a period of 90 days from the date of making such a reference. So once a case is referred to, they have to close the case within 90 days from the date of reference. Now just imagine the facilitation council is basically an additional work given to the Department of Industries. Okay. So along with their work, they have been given this case. The bench mostly sits once in a month or twice in a month. Within that, they are supposed to close within 90 days. Now, suppose, okay, mostly in what I would say is, see, once in a month, still the case comes for minimum two hearings is being taken for conciliation, two hearings for arbitration. Many of the times it's right. It can be three or it can some be three plus three. So suppose every month the case comes for hearing. It takes around 4 to 6 months for a facilitation council, but it's still much lesser than what happens in the civil case. That is the reason uh, everyone wants their case to be coming under facilitation council. We have seen, where retailers try to come, then the case is being, wholesalers, retailers, works contractors. They file a case and then the cases are being rejected. Though they have alternate remedies are there, they can go for a civil suit, but no, everyone wants to have the benefit in the facilitation council. Obviously, one benefit is Section 16, the 3 times the interest which is applicable to them is can be allowed only by the facilitation councils. So this is where. So though facilitation councils, I would say, is working with a limited bandwidth. They are like uh, it's like a department of industries. Then still they are able to do the job very much better. Now, Uni7 Engineering Infrastructure Limited versus Micro and Small Enterprises. Okay. Here, okay. Can a buyer can go to the facilitation council? It says no, buyer cannot go to the facilitation council only if there is a counter claim. Seller has filed a case and the buyer has a counter claim, then he can approach to the facilitation council and not otherwise. The facilitation councils are made only for sellers and not for the buyers. Is Limitation Act applicable to MSMEs? Okay. Like what is Limitation Act? Limitation Act says suppose any supply is done within 3 years, the remedy has to be taken with. If the remedy has not been applied within within 3 years, okay, the claim becomes barred, time barred. Then there are certain exceptions. The one exception is if any payment is done or liability is accepted. In that case, from there, a fresh limitation is given. Here, the Limitation Act also is very much applicable to MSMEs, but only at the arbitration stage. For conciliation stage, there is no limitation applicable. This was decided by the Supreme Court in Sonali Power Equipments versus the chairman Maharashtra State Electricity Board. So Limitation Act does not apply to conciliation proceedings under the MSMED Act. This means that a time barred claim can still be referred for conciliation under the MSMED Act. Limitation Act does not apply to arbitration proceedings under the MSME Act. This means that arbitration claims must be filed within the limitation period prescribed under the Limitation Act. But obviously, yes, the claim can be taken under the Conciliation Act, but the respondent, can the respondent come and say, sir, I will make, what will he say? Suppose he accepts the liability and it gets on recorded, if there is be a fresh limitation. So obviously, in such cases, the respondent will not appear himself in the conciliation stage. Okay. In the limit, in the once the conciliation fails, automatically it goes to the arbitration phase. In the arbitration phase, he will say limitation is applicable. Okay. So Limitation Act applies only to arbitrations and not for conciliation. Section 19, application for setting aside decree, award or order. Whose order? The order which is issued by the MSCFC. No application for setting aside any decree, award, or other orders made either by the council itself or by any institution or center providing ADR, okay, alternate dispute resolution. So this is basically once you make a matter to the resolution council, they may refer the case to other such institutions. So it is why it is a council or the center or institute providing the alternate dispute resolution to which a reference was made by the council shall be entertained by any court unless the appellant, not being the supplier, has deposited it 75% of the amount in terms of a decree, award, or as the case may be, the other orders and the manner directed by the court. So he has to deposit 75% of the amount which is there in the award. Okay. Only then he can go for an appeal. Provided that pending disposal of any application to set aside a decree, award, or orders, the court shall order that such percentage of the amount deposited shall be. So this is basically pending transition provision. Okay. Okay. What has happened is, okay, you're saying that I have to file an appeal. I will not file an appeal. I'll go for a writ petition. In that case, so this happened in India Glycosis Limited and another's versus Micro and Small Facilitation Council, Mitchell. This is the Mitchell Malkajgiri is the bench where I am a member. Okay, here the Supreme Court affirmed that a writ petition challenging the award from the Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council is not maintainable, emphasizing the need to follow specific procedures outlined in the MSME Act. The court noted that the appellant had incorrectly filed a writ petition instead of pursuing the remedies available under the MSME Act. Consequently, the court upheld the High Court's decision that the writ petition is not maintainable. Okay. So he has to go as per section 19, pay 75% deposit and file an appeal. Okay. So writ petition challenging the award of the MSMEs are not maintainable. What is the composition of the MSME Facilitation Council? The Micro and Small Enterprise Facilitation Council shall consist of not less than three. So it has to be three or more, but not more than five. So it has to be 3 to 5 members to be appointed from the following categories. Namely, the first one is Director of Industries. He shall be the chairman. The second one or more office bearers or representative of the Association of Micro or Small Industries or Enterprise in the states. So any office bearers of the association, representatives of associations of whom? Micro and small enterprises. So Micro and Small Enterprises Association, they will nominate one person here. One or more enterprise of the banks and financial institutions lending to micro and small enterprises. So any one of the banker is going to nominate their person, and one or more person having a special knowledge in the field of industry, finance, law, trade and commerce. They will nominate one of the positions. So basically, there'll be not less than 3 or 5. So 3 to 5 members and each category. So basically, if you see, generally 4, and because one category is given. So one category also 4 people are there. Okay. Then the bench will pass the order based on the majority. Okay. This is the composition of the facilitation council. Now, if you see how is it different from a court? Do you think these members might be having knowledge of law? Director of Industries, one or more office bearers representing the association or micro and small industries or enterprise, one or more representative of banks and financial institutions, one or more persons having special knowledge in the field of industry, trade, law, finance, trade, or commerce. So if you see here, there is a possibility that none of them might be a legal person. So that is the reason the facilitation council will go more on facts rather on legality. Now, for example, if a person instead of giving a wakalat, he gives a authorization letter, they'll say, okay. They will say are not very much particular about the format, the font, the spaces, the alignments. Okay. And many of the cases, I'll tell you, like we have seen many of the cases, the councils, they come and say they submit a memo to the facilitation council. The council means advocates. They come and submit a memo to the facilitation council saying that I got a call from the respondent yesterday night, okay, at 8 o'clock. And majority of the cases is only 8 o'clock. It's neither 7, neither 9. 8 o'clock he gets a call, and hence I am submitting a memo requesting you to find time to submit my wakalat in the next hearing. Okay. And so we say, okay, so you are not submitting any wakalat. Fair enough. Are you having any authorization from the letter saying that yes, you are authorized? That is also not there. So then what is the use of this memo? Why can't you straight away say that you are absent? No, he says, sir, generally the courts allow such process. I said, the bench straight away rejects such things, such practices it might be there in the courts, but unless until the person comes with the wakalat, and since the facilitation council has closed the case within 90 days, they see that every hearing is fruitful. Okay, any person who is trying to just get an adjournment, okay, is taken very adversely. So this is the composition of the facilitation council. In one case, and it has been observed that councils, they come with matter saying that they don't want the settlement to be done. They want only to drag the case. Such senses are being caught, and the council immediately reacts and says, boss, you have to submit data documents and just don't try to, drag on the case. And that is the case in specifically in the conciliation or mediation stage. The facilitation council generally asks or insists more on the decision making persons to come to the facilitation councils rather than advocates who come and say that I will again have to go back and updates. Then there is no such the conciliation and mediation is not possible. So that is the reason the it insists on people who have the decision making authority to come to the bench. Okay. Now, how do I file a case with the facilitation council? The website is Samadhaan. There are two A's, Samadhaan. Samadhaan.msme.gov.in is the case. This is the website samadhan.msme.gov.in. Filing case for MSME. So here again a portal will be there. Now if you say, obviously in this case, Udyam registration number is already having, because in that case he gives Udyam registration. What was the mobile number given in the Udyam registration and the verification? Because without Udyam registration, straight away he is not a supplier. Okay. Okay. The supplier has to be a micro or a small enterprise having filed a memorandum, that is having registered. So he's supposed to have Udyam registration. Once he gives that, and OTP is going to come. Once he submits that, that form will come. Okay. Now, in this case, what documentation should be submitted? So basically, here in this case, what happens is purchase orders. The supplier has to confirm that debt. Okay. What other documents are there? Suppose if he supports only, he uploads only the invoice copies, is it accepted? No. Invoice copies does not confirm a debt. The invoice copies has to be endorsed. The goods should have been received by the respondent. So the endorsed invoice copies has to be received. If any purchase order has been issued by the buyer, that copy of the purchase order has to be issued. In case there is no purchase order and it is a oral agreement, in that case he has to give an undertaking saying that it was a oral agreement. Affidavit has to be given. Then after that he'll submit a copy of the invoice copies. If any delivery challans are there, the goods has been sent by some transport agencies or some delivery challans are there, those copies of the DC has to be submitted. Ledger statements, if it is there, if he has taken any confirmation of debt from the supplier, those copies has to be taken in. So he has to ensure that all the documents which are related for the confirmation of debt has to be given. There are cases where the supplier only submits the invoice copies, okay, and the respondent never appears on the bench, because now if only the invoice copies are there, what is the proof that the goods have been received by the supplier? There is no endorsement, okay, there is no confirmation, there are no check, there are no POs are there. So, and there is no respondent. Okay, at least the respondent comes and says, yes, sir, I have to make the payment. In that case, okay, fair enough. Since he himself have accepted the liability, that will be taken on record and the council can proceed accordingly. Otherwise, it is the duty of the supplier to prove that there is a debt. So he has to submit the documents. So those documents he is supposed to log in and then upload it. So now, so we have seen on the top menu, case filing for enterprise or MSME unit. He'll click there. That is what. And then it will ask for the OTPs. Okay. Udyam registration number. Then he will give the Udyam registration number, mobile number, and verification code and say validate. Once a validation comes, OTP will come. Then he will say application entry, a new entry. He'll file for the new application. Then what will ask for? What is the date of invoice which is under dispute? Okay. So he'll give the last invoice number. Then the petitioner details. Okay. The person who is filing the case, the petitioner's details. Then the respondent details, address. The respondent details and the address will be fitted in. The job worker, the work, the purchase orders will be uploaded. Invoice copies details has to be filled in, and he has to upload them as a PDF files. So if there are multiple invoices, all the invoices has to be made as one PDF file and will be uploaded. And finally, he'll submit. Then finally a confirmation will come to that. I just removed the details there. This file will be received. And along with that, what he has to do is now those documents he has to submit to the facilitation council. So what he'll submit, the printed copy of the claim application as filed with the MSME Samadhaan portal, copy of the Udyam registration certificate, copy of the purchase orders, invoices, goods receipt certificates if available, and agreements with the buyer. The claim application must be supported by an affidavit in the case of the purchase order is oral, and audited balance sheets and ledgers for the relevant financial years. So basically, all the documents to substantiate the claim, one copy will be submitted. Copies will be submitted. 3 copies actually will be submitted to the facilitation council. Facilitation council will send 1 copy to the respondent and will say the respondent to respond. And if he doesn't respond within 15 days, then the case will come for hearing. Okay. Then once it comes for hearing, how it will now proceed? The first is, again, as I said here, it will be into 2 stages, the conciliation stage. And then if the conciliation fails, it goes to the arbitration stage. Okay. So that's what I think with this. Any questions are there? You can take it up. I have closed one. And once the arbitration goes on, the facilitation council will pass an award, which will called as the arbitration award. And with that, the supplier can proceed for the recovery by filing an execution petition. And this is equivalent to once the award is issued by any court. If this has the equal importance, then he can straight away go for the execution petition. So we can go for questions if they are there. Jagdish, how are we going to have questions here?
Yes, sir, we have two questions. Just I'm sending to Jagdish, sir. He will ask you.
Sorry? Questions?
Yes, sir, we have a few questions.
Yeah, where is it?
Just Jagdish, sir, will ask you. Just let me send the Jagdish, sir.
Okay.
Jagdish, sir, have you got the questions?
Yes. Okay, sir. Ritesh, there are a few questions, sir. One question is that can a receiver of service registered under the MSE file a complaint against his supplier to whom he has issued a debit note as per the agreed PO terms for recovery of penalty due to negligence of work and unsatisfactory service? So he is asking that whether recipient of service can raise a complaint under the MSME
We have
for
dealt here.
debit note.
Yes.
So we have already dealt.
Yes, in the Uni 7 engineering versus and infrastructures, Let's say the buyers cannot make any claim with the facilitation council. Only if the seller has made and the buyer has a counter claim, then he can file.
Okay. Okay. The second question is, on what basis can interest clause be included in an invoice when no such clause was in a? I think there is a government contract when there is no interest clause. So how can we
Yes.
include in the invoice?
Yes. So here what we have to understand that this MSMED Act is a special act. Okay. So though we have to see here section 16, which straightaway says the buyer shall, notwithstanding anything contained any agreement between the buyer and the seller or any other law for the time being in force. Okay, what it says, notwithstanding anything contained any agreement. So if the agreement is talking about interest or it is not talking about interest, the non-obstance clause straightaway says the buyer shall, notwithstanding anything contained in any agreement between the buyer and the seller, and in any law for the time being in force, be liable to pay compound interest with monthly rest to the supplier. Okay, at 3 times the RBI rate. Now, this section 16 interest is a statutory interest now because it is given by a statute. Okay, so the seller can approach the facility even if the principal amount is paid. Still, there is a due amount as per section 17. Okay, what it says, the buyer is liable to pay the amount with interest. So even if the interest amount is not paid, the facilitation, he can still go to the facilitation council because the total amount due under section 16 is interest is statutory plus the principal amount. So even though there is no interest is there in the agreement, okay, as per section 16, automatically they have to pay the 3 times the rate. So basically here the idea is to bring the discipline. Okay. See what happens is if the timely payment is not done to the MSME units. See, it is something like that. Today we have a trader. If you make a delay the payment, that shop will be closed. But tomorrow someone can open a shop. But just imagine if there is a manufacturing unit, if it closes, what is the probability of again a manufacturing unit to open? The probability is very remote. So the government is protecting the manufacturing units. Okay. But that have different things. See, that is the reason initially when it says activity plus services, basically services, they intended to say job worker. But that services now today is accepted as every other service is now being applied in the, see, just imagine, who is the facilitation council? It is state government. Under which department? Department of Industries. Now, Department of Industries is getting cases which is for security agencies. How is security agencies got to do with Department of Industries? See, this is where the issue is. Department of Industries says you allow us only industries come here, or else you have one full-fledged tribunal which is working on a full time. We are we have our additional, we already have our work of Department of Industries. Along with that, we are doing, and we do not have any legal knowledge. Obviously, none of them are, they are none of them are legal advocates or the legal knowledge is not there. Now, if you don't make that speaking order, again the case is rejected. So it took them quite some time to get into this process. Okay. So that is how, but yes, technicalities, everything is very good. When it comes to technical, they are very strong. But at the same time, but yes, the process is also faster. And that is how the council is. So they straight away says, put legal aside, bring the facts.
Okay, so question number 3 is question number 3 is asked, what is the average recovery percentage through Samadhaan recovery process and what is the average timeline for recovery? So,
see, I'll put it in this way. It all depends. See, the supplier has supplied to government, the recovery is good because the government obviously it has to take responsibility. Large companies, the recovery is good. Small companies who is again an MSME, he doesn't come to the council only. What will you do? So in the case of government and large companies, okay, they have their own issues. Yes, they have their issues, sir. He has not followed as per the agreement. This is not there. Interest is not there. They have, but yes, once the order is passed, the recovery is there. Many of the cases, what happens is in the case of small companies where the respondent doesn't appear itself. Okay. In that cases, the recoveries are, and I think on the Facilitation Council websites also, it is there recovery, MSME Samadhan.
I
The
think
statistics are there.
statistics are there. Cases are listed and
Yes.
what is the result?
The statistics are there in the MSME Samadhan portal. So what applications filed as 2,48,000, MSE rejected,
Yeah.
amount settled. Okay. So there was the statistics are there. You can look for the statistics. But yes,
Okay.
the cases are taken up speedily. I will not say 90 days. See, many of the cases, the conciliation, if it takes more time, see, minimum 2 hearings for conciliation is given and minimum 2 hearings for arbitration are taken. Once in a month is 4 months. So minimum it is 4 months. But yes,
Okay.
many
What
of the
is
cases, 2 hearings are not wherein suppose the claimant is asking for time or the respondent is asking for time, the hearings are delayed. So on an average, you can take around 6 to 6 months, I would say. 6 months to
okay?
9 months. Yes.
Next question is what are the enforcement right of the facilitating council in case buyer refuse to pay amount even after decision of facilitating council?
Yes. See, Facilitation Council can pass an award, which is an arbitration award. That award has to be taken by the seller and has to apply for an execution petition. Okay. Like the seller has to give the entire details where the buyer assets in the jurisdiction where the buyers is. So he has to give these are the assets he's having. Then the assets will be sold and the amount will be paid to the seller. Okay. So it is basically the EP can straight away file for a EP based on that award. That is the power it has. And the buyer has to pay 75% if he's going for an appeal.
Okay. Interest question is will be a rater. Okay. One question is asked: can a CA appear on behalf of MSME before the facilities council? Can
There is
CA
no
appear?
problem. See, there is no such. See, in fact, there is nothing like only the advocates. Any person who is appearing on behalf of the facilitation council can appear. Okay, there is no. He can be. There is no such bar saying that so and so person cannot appear. Only thing is they have to have an authorization letter. They can appear. And generally, the facilitation council would want a decision-making person to come there. Okay. So if he's and not a person who is just trying to come there and litigate the matter. That is what the objective is. Their objective is to resolve the matter and finally they leave the award. So there is no such bar on the CA appearing on the for the Festation Council.
Okay. Another question is what action can MSEFC take if the buyer does not comply with the decision?
That's it. Our order will be passed. See,
No,
end
but
of the
after the
day,
order, mm,
and the seller has to approach the execution, file an execution petition.
okay.
That's it. He has to give 15 days time for the buyer to make the payment, and then he has to file execution petition.
Okay. Few are more questions, but I think you have already covered in your answer, sir. I'm just reading data.
Okay. Yeah.
What are the documents are required to file an application on MSME Samadhaan? You have already mentioned your
Yes.
yeah.
After
How
filing, he has to
effective?
refer to that. He has to select in the drop down which facilitation council. Like in Hyderabad, there are 4 facilitation councils. He has to select that appropriate facilitation councils. Okay, he can
Okay.
see in the website the list of facilitation councils are given. He has to, in case he can contact the facilitation councils and know which is the area because again Hyderabad is divided based on the region.
Okay.
Earlier it was 2, now it has been recently made 4. So based on that facilitation council, he has to, or else if he incorrectly selects also, the facilitation council will transfer the case to the other facilitation. But it may take around 1 month extra. That's it.
Okay. Another question is can MSME approach sellers the civil court after filing Samadhan case?
See, seller has to see, there are only 2 things. Seller, if he is approaching MSME facilitation council, he cannot file a civil suit. Of case, you
Okay.
cannot take 2 remedies at a time. Yes, but he can file if there is a check bonds is there, then he can file a check bonds case and a MSME Samadhan. So he has to select which one he wants to go.
Okay. Another question is why do many MSME hesitate to file recovery application against the large buyer?
See, why do MSME? See, basically here the issue is he has issues with the company, but he's not willing to fight.
Yeah.
He has a fear that if he fights, he might not be issued the orders again.
Yeah,
That
he,
fear
he
is
will
there.
he will might lose the clients.
Yes, so that is the issue he
Mm.
is having. But obviously,
Mm.
see, he will also wait for certain time, and finally he will fight. He has to fight on Monday, and that's what it happens.
Okay. Can a buyer challenge the order of MSEFC? If yes, where?
He can file
I
the
think you
instruction.
already I think you
Yes,
already
it's
covered.
there in section 9. Yes.
Uh, Another question is, what are the main reason for rejection of application on Samadhan portal? What are the various reasons that application will be rejected?
See, first thing is he's not a small micro or small. First of all, he has to be a
Mm.
micro or small enterprise. Medium enterprises cannot approach the facilitation council. Second
Okay.
thing is nature of activities. As I've said, traders will not be entertained. Okay, and then this one contractors who is supplying goods and services both. Okay, they will also not be taken. Those cases will also be not been taken on the
Okay.
works contractors
Uh,
will not be taken under the MSME portal. Apart from
okay.
that, there is no
Okay.
issues.
Another question is what support can SIDBI or banks offer to MSME awaiting delay payments? So I think they will might go to bank code and all. So loan
Yes.
financing is possible. Second
No,
question
fine.
is a lawyer required, or can the staff of applicant or owner of the firm attend the proceeding? That they are
See,
asking whether lawyer
basically,
is
it is
required.
always suggested the owner to go there or
Okay.
the staff who has the authority to take the. See, what happens is
Take,
suppose if he's there in the conciliation stage, okay, buyer says, "Sir, I'm not having money. My company is not doing good. I can make only 70% payment." Now
mm,
the seller is he ready to accept that 70%? Now he cannot say, "I'll go back, talk to my owner, and come back."
mm,
So the decision making person is always better to be there. So whoever it
okay.
is, if the employee has a decision making authority, no problem. If the council has a decision making authority, no problem. So whoever
Okay.
attends, okay. Or else if it is arbitration stage, yes, they have to only file counters, rejoinders, and finally the arguments will happen. So, but
Okay.
the conciliation stage, it is always better for a decision making authority to come there. Arbitration stage, it doesn't matter if he appoints a council, if he doesn't appoint a council, doesn't matter. There is no brief, even if he writes in structured way by step that this is how the case is, they'll take it. They're not very particular about the format, font, spacing, lining, format, nothing is out. You give a written submission and this is accepted.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Another question is, can the entity registered as a trader is also eligible to file claim on MSME? So I think not allowed. Trader is
No,
not allowed.
traders are not allowed.
Um, what is the process after claim submission on Samadhan portal? Is there any process which will be required to done by supplier? So you have already mentioned the process now.
Yes, the fees will also be there. I have there is a
Okay.
nominal fees is also there in the facilitation councils. Okay. So they initially what they say is pay 1,000 rupees and subsequently the balance amount they can pay. Okay.
Hmm.
In fact, as I've said, Telangana state government has entered into MOU with IAMC, International Arbitration and Mediation Center. Their fees is generally too high, but they had a subsidized fees agreement. So here what happens is any large cases are where the facilitation council sees that the items are more and each item has its own criticality. They refer the case to the IAMC. Again, the case has to be referred before the arbitration is being accepted at the conciliation
Okay.
stage and before the arbitration. It cannot accept the arbitration and forward. No, it has to be before, if it says conciliation failed, or at the conciliation stage only, it will be referred to the IAMC, or it will say conciliation is not successful and referred to IAMC. They will take the case there. So the advantages of there, they say we have a specific panel. We can take the hearing on a weekly basis or daily basis because that is the advantage they'll have. Whereas here in the facilitation council, they'll be taking up every month in a month. So this is the issue.
So another question is that what is the process after claim submission on Samadhan portal? Is there any process which are required to be done after Samadhan portal submissions? Means that
Yes.
after
After
application submit.
Yes, so he has to take the form on, and along with that, he has to submit all the attachment invoice copies, all those things. He has to submit three sets in the facilitation council. They will also say the DD in whose name they want that has to take. So better what they can do is they can refer the phone numbers. The list of phone numbers are there in the facilitation council. I show it. The list.
So, one or two questions from
Yeah.
my side because I am also facing some challenges.
Yeah.
Suppose there are two MSME. Buyer is also
Okay.
MSME and seller is also MSME.
Mhm.
And let's suppose buyer has not made the payment in time. So as you know that we have to take the payment.
Mhm.
As you know that we have to make a interest payment since the buyer has already paid to the supplier, but there is a delay payment. So we have to make the payment interest payment. But seller has not asked for interest payment. We have already made. So is it compulsory to show that interest in our financial statement? Because we are also doing the audit as a tax auditor or a
See,
statutory
in
auditor.
this case, see, it's first thing is buyer has not made the payment.
The buyer
Okay.
has made a payment but delayed. Let's say after 60 days.
And is he making the payment for interest?
Actually not made the payment of interest, but
And seller has not filed any case also.
no case is filed.
That's it. So where is the interest? Because even if the interest is coming, as per the GST Act, he has to raise the invoice.
Hmm.
So because the interest, if the goods is for 18%, interest on that specific good is coming, then the rate applicable for interest is also 18%.
Mm-hmm.
So the for interest also the GST has to be raised. So in such cases, since he has not raised the invoice and the payment is also not done, okay. Because
Okay.
see, if you see this way, though the interest is a statutory interest, but still in the conciliation stage, both of them say that, okay, sir, even if I receive the principal amount, I'm okay. Now, will the facilitation council say that, no, this interest is a statutory interest, you have to pay? They'll say, okay, Baba, closing is closing, that's it. Move ahead.
Okay. But
That is how.
my in my question, uh, even supplier has not gone for a Samadhan. We have just made
Mhm.
the payment later. Let's suppose generally we have to make a payment in 45 days, but we have made the payment in 75 days. Okay.
Mm.
Suppose my client who is in tax auditor. So
Mm.
under tax auditor, we have to report that delay payments and all clause. So whether I have to charge interest under section 16 to MSME in financial statement because seller is not asking.
Like what you can do is you can ask for a no due from the supplier. That's it.
Okay, no
Because
this is
yes, as
sufficient.
you might have a fear that the supplier might go tomorrow, file a facilitation
Hmm.
council case. You can ask for a no due. That's it. Settled.
Okay, that is
Or a
sufficient.
confirmation from the suppliers that there is no due. Close it, no? See,
Okay.
it is something like I'll put you in this way. Tomorrow, it is possible that suppose I am a supplier and if I have not received the payment, and if I know that the other party there is an auditor, I can trouble the auditor also. I'll
Hmm.
tell you how. Thing is, as per the Companies Act, every 6 months, MSME one form has to be uploaded. It has
Yeah,
says how much
perfect.
amount is due, how much is the principal amount, how much is the interest amount. Okay.
Yeah.
And in the separate financial statements also, the MSME dues has to be shown there. Now, I will give a notice to the seller will give a notice to the buyer saying that this is my
Hmm.
amount due and a notice to the buyer also. If you are
Hmm.
getting such notices, be very careful.
Okay.
Okay. Otherwise, straight away, both the parties, you just ask for a balance confirmation and he is also confirming that there is no dues. Close it.
Hmm. Okay. No charging
Once
of
he
interest
says
in
that the
financial
confirmation
statement.
there is no dues, that's it. How can,
Okay.
when there is no due, how can I create a evidence?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And another question is that generally in the but you have said that work contract is not allowed in MSME. Some other.
Works
Okay.
contract is not allowed. See, see,
Hmm.
facilitation councils also doesn't want to entertain works contract.
Okay.
There
Hmm.
is goods and service. They say Department of
Hmm.
Industries, if we get into works contract and they have to take
Hmm.
up around 40 to 50 cases in a day, works contract
Hmm.
itself will take full day.
Yeah,
And next
perfect.
hearing they have after 1 month. So they want to have simple cases and close it. एक invoice,
Yeah.
4 invoice, payment आया, amount receive हुआ, payment close.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
see these
Hmm.
contracts. So and they would talk it went into technicality or so either
Ah.
it has to be goods or service. Sir, here these both not
Hmm.
applicable. Now it is matter is pending with the Supreme
Okay.
Court. It is matter. Once if case, no, you have to take. In fact, initially they are not accepting services also. Security
Okay.
agency service, this and that way. What they were saying is We are Department of Industries. You are only job worker relating to industries. We'll take service. They were constituting services as only those services which are applicable for industries. Then cases came. We said nothing doing. Service is a service. But okay. Now they have accepted, like CA services also initially they were used to reject. But now all services have come in here. But still here, back to works contract. Most of the residential councils are rejecting. Once the Supreme Court matter decides, then we'll see.
Okay. So for MSME definition, the limit of a investment 2.5 25.
Yes.
So it is a original investment or WDV. We have to consider. We have to look WDV or
as per
original
the books,
investment.
as per the books of as per the books, what is the investment? Yes.
But in financial statement, in FA, we are generally showing WDV.
Yes, that will take it. WDV only will be taken. Yes.
Only WDV. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So I think all the question is resolved. Nothing is more. Yeah. Okay. So Ravi sir, can we start vote of thanks? Ravi ji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes. So good evening once again to everyone. So on behalf of a committee of MSME and startup, I Jagdish Solanki extended my heartfelt gratitude to all the contribute made by the MSME Pathshala series. At the outset, my sincere thanks to CA Ritesh Mittalji, who has delivered a highly informative and practical session on Samadhaan, recovery assistance to MSME, but particularly related to explain the various provisions of section of a MSME Act dealing with the delay payment to micro and small enterprises, and also come to our notice that a medium enterprise not is covered under the MSME for payment purpose, guiding us the MSME portal and the how for also let us know the process how to file the application for delay payment in a Samadhaan portal. Also provided a guidance related to micro small facilitating council, and most importantly address and resolve all participant query with practical and experience based solutions. I also So with this we formally conclude the today's session, taking away actionable knowledge that can help us guide MSME more effectively in recovering their dues and protecting their interests. Thank you all, and we look forward for meeting you in the future session.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
You, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a wonderful session, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish, sir, for coordination.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you.